So we are live on Facebook for the very latest Lunch and Learn. Today we're going to be talking about returning to the workplace, but not just returning to the workplace, but returning to the workplace safely. Two guests today, we have Paul and Kevin. So let's get this Lunch and Learn started.
Your local enterprise office, helping your business respond.
So you're very welcome. We have live here. You see Paul. So here's Paul. Paul is the head of the NSA Legal Metrology Department. Talk about that in a second. Of course, the NSAI are the National Standards Authority of Ireland. Also logging in today, and we should have him on board in a few minutes, is Kevin Curran, who's the head of local enterprise, the head of the local enterprise office for Cork North and West. So we have Kevin on the board, and he's going to talk you through, I suppose, any questions when it comes to supports for the local enterprise office. So what's our lofty agenda for today? Well, here we go. So our agenda today, or this lunchtime, is what can we do now to prepare for opening our business? What do I need to do when the business is open? So what is the new normal look like? Paul has lots of really useful links that he's going to give you guys just to take a look at. And then we'll talk with a bit of luck at the end to Kevin regarding some of those local enterprise office supports that are available to us today. I'm sure there's going to be more supports coming down the line, but we'll talk today about the ones that are available today. So, Paul, very quickly, quick question for you. I've dropped my slide now. Sorry, it disappeared off the screen. I'm just being nosy now at this stage. But NSA legal metrology. What's legal metrology?
So it's a question I get asked an awful lot. Metrology is the science of measurement, and legal metrology looks at any measurements that are used for trade. So we have legislation in place where we make sure that petrol pumps, taximeters, weighing scales and supermarkets, that where you pay for a measurement, that measurement is accurate and you're receiving what you pay for. So we have legislation there. We have a team of inspectors that go around the country, and where we come across non-compliant instruments, we can prosecute people and bring them before the courts.
Okay, fascinating stuff. And then the National Standards Authority of Ireland. Tell me about who you guys are.
So legal metrology is a division within NSAI. We're the National Standards Authority of Ireland. We're a government, a semi-state body, and we have a number of divisions. First of all, we have our standards division, which is responsible for developing national and international standards. We have a certification division, which looks at a number of areas. We would certify quality systems, the likes of ISO 9000 or 14000. We would also certify medical instruments, medical devices, and we look at building and construction products as well under our Agremont section. We also have the National Metrology Laboratory, which is a measurement laboratory in Glasnevin, which is first and foremost is responsible for maintaining all the national standards of measurement, and they also provide calibration services and training services as well. So that just gives you a little overview of what we do here in the NSAI.
Okay, brilliant. And we're going to talk about it today, and there's a lot of supports on your physical website when it comes to businesses and COVID-19. So your website is?
Website is www.nsai.ie, and people can go there, and there's a dedicated COVID-19 section where they can download the various pieces of documentation that we've developed over the last few weeks.
Okay, brilliant. So let's start off with the most asked question that we've been asked since we announced this particular session, and you've got some lovely resources for this, which we'll pull up now in a second. But what do I need to do to get in place before I reopen my business? So let me just pull the resources that you sent me earlier on, and maybe you can talk through them.
Yeah, sure. So a number of weeks ago, NSAI, we work under the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation. So a number of weeks ago, the challenge that a number of companies faced at the time is that there was a lot of documents out there, and it took a lot of time to work through the various documents to get the information people needed. So we decided back in middle of March that we would try and take all this information and put it into one guide. So that's where the NSAI guidance documents came from. So Today, if people are looking to reopen their businesses after closing down for COVID-19, there's really 2 or 3 pieces of key documentation they need to look at. First and foremost is the Return to Work Safety Protocol. This was launched over the weekend by the Health and Safety Authority. So this is a document. This is now a document that it's a legal document, and people have legal responsibilities to deliver what's in this document. So that's a very important document. And then sitting underneath that document are what we would say the 2 NSAI guides. And these guides really give more practical examples of how people can implement the Return to Work Safety Protocol. So they're the key pieces of documentation that I would say people need to review before they take the next steps of reopening their businesses.
Okay, brilliant. So just on the screen there, there's a little link there that will take you to the guide announced by the government on, I think it was last Saturday. It was Heather Humphreys. It's bit.ly/return to work 2020. So if you haven't looked at that guide yet, that's where you're going to physically find it. And what I loved about the NSAI's guide was the examples, and we'll talk about this with Paul now in a minute. But certainly the fact that if you're in the retail business, there's a fantastic guide on their website, which we'll discuss today, which gives really practical examples of what you physically need to do. So check those out. We'll put those guides in the comment box in a little bit. Let's just put us back there, Paul. You'd also put together some really good practical steps. So if I'm thinking about coming back into business right now, or maybe I'm in the hardware industry thinking of next Monday, there's quite a lot of work for me to do before I open my doors. Here's some steps that you sent me earlier on, which I think would be really, really useful to everyone. And make sure I've got the right slides up there. But can we see them, Paul?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the slide. So really, what we've done, Greg, is we've looked at the Return to Work Safety Protocol, and we've kind of looked at the high level areas that people need to focus on. So what I'm going to do for the next few minutes is just really bring people through each of these headings and just give some examples and explanations. And obviously, I'm not going to have time to give all the examples or practical explanations today, so people can get further information from our guides later on. So I suppose the headings to look at that people will see on their screen there, really 7 key areas. The first is people are going to need to develop a business a COVID-19 response plan, or you can call it a business continuity plan. The safety statement of your organization is going to have to be updated, and maybe your standard operating procedures would have to be updated as well. It's very important that you get a good communication plan in place. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that. I think around your organization, around your premises, signage is very, very important, both inside and outside. We'll have a little look about that. Your resourcing, it's how to protect your staff, very, very important. And when your staff come back after being off, some people have been closed now for the last 7 or 8 weeks. It's very important that you give them a good detailed induction about what changes are being put in place to make the environment safe for their return. We're going to talk a little bit about what type of controls you can have in the environment that will allow you to maintain the physical distancing and the hygiene that's required. And then finally, we'll finish off then on what do you do if you have a suspected case in your workplace or your work environment? How do you deal with that safely, and how do you protect that person, but how do you also protect the other people that are on your site as well? So like I said, these are high level topics that we'll cover today, but people can certainly find further details in the documents that we referred to a few minutes ago after this webinar finishes today.
So brilliant. So what's a COVID-19 response plan? What is that?
Okay, this is something that people may never have seen before. Okay, so it's like I said, it's a response plan, or some people can call it a business continuity plan. What I've given here is just some suggested headings. I'm not suggesting that this is the finished article, but these are certainly some suggested headings. People can have more detail in the document if they require. So I think the key points that the business continuity or your response plan should focus on will be, first of all, what is the purpose and what is the objectives of your plan? What do you hope to achieve with this plan? You need to have clearly defined roles and responsibilities for people within your organization. And you need to have a good understanding of the control structure that you have in place in your organization. An important part of this plan is giving people advice and information on symptoms and how COVID-19 is spread. There's a lot of information on the internet at the moment. Some is very accurate, some not so accurate. So I think it's important that people have accurate, up-to-date information on what COVID-19 is and how it can be spread around an organisation. The following sections then really deal with how you defend against COVID-19 in your organisation. And at the moment, we don't have a vaccine. There's no antiviral there at the moment. So the best weapon we have really is hygiene and physical distancing. So I think you should certainly reference those in your plan. Working travel arrangements, again, there should be details in there. The advice at the moment, and we'll touch on it later, would be you restrict your travel for work wherever possible, and you move to remote meetings. So that's something you should cover. Sick leave, special leave policy should be covered in this plan as well, considering the times we're in. Alternative working arrangements. So the advice from government and at the moment is that everybody or anybody who can work from home should work from home. So again, you should have a plan in place to support those alternative working arrangements and make sure that people have in place what they need to do that efficiently and effectively. A very important aspect of planning is to keep yourself informed. Because as you know, this is evolving sometimes on a daily basis. There's new information coming up all the time. So part of your plan should focus on how do we make sure that all our documentation is up to date and relevant, and how do we communicate that effectively to the staff. Then the final point I have here is around staff support. So while some people are coping very well at the moment with COVID-19 and with the challenges, there are a number of staff that are not coping so well. They're quite stressed, they're quite anxious. So it's very important that you have supports in place for your staff to help them through these difficult times. You know, that could just be simply pointing them towards relevant information on the internet, or it could be having more detailed staff supports in place in your organization. So that's really what that plan should contain. Okay, so that's a nice list. So it's quite easy. The answer possibly is no, Paul, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. Is, you know, are there any good examples of such a plan that businesses can look at? I'm sure they will come out in the coming days and weeks in various different places. It's difficult to give a plan that can be used, a generic one that can be used for everybody. So I think those headings are pretty generic. If people go on and do a Google search or a search on the internet, there are lots of examples of business continuity plans there. Like I said, some very detailed and some not so detailed. You really have to tailor it to the needs and the objectives, if you like, of your organization. Okay, so a big point that I want to make is don't be scared of this, because again, if I'm a small business, this sounds bloody complicated. This is not what I signed up for as a business owner. So use Paul's headings and literally, it could be a pen and paper. Start writing the stuff out, keeping it simple, but making sure that we've covered all those key points. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, I think the important thing, Greg, that this is a living document. So these response plans, they can be updated, they can be added to over time. So what can start off as something quite simple, over time you can add to it and it can become a very comprehensive document. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so really genuinely out there, because it's very stressful now. This has been a very stressful occasion for businesses. It's been heartbreaking from our cash flow point of view. We're looking at reopening our business now with less capacity to do business than ever before, and there's a bunch of work to do. So don't let this overwhelm you, and just keep things simple, but put the processes in place. Let's go back to your document for a second. So talking of, say, you talk about updating safety statements and procedures. Yeah, I think we have a slide there on the safety statement. If you can go to that, please. We'll pull that up now. So what exactly is a health safety statement? I'm sure most of us have them. Most people have them. Some people may not be familiar. So a safety, it's a written action plan for safeguarding the health and safety of those people at work. So that's what your safety statement is and what it's trying to do. And by law, the safety statement must be based on risk assessments. And this is the risk assessments of the hazards that you have in your workplace. Okay, so if people refer to the return to work safely protocol sometime later on today or over the weekend, there's a lot of reference to the risk assessments. So for the next minute or two, I'm just going to really, I suppose, introduce people possibly for the first time, or just review what a risk assessment is and how you can use a risk assessment to update the safety statement from your organization. Because as you know, or as you've seen in the news, the Health and Safety Authority will be going out and they will be carrying out inspections of people's premises, and an updated safety statement is a requirement under the new protocol. So it's important that people do this. So in terms of a risk assessment, well, I'm going to give you a very simple overview of a risk assessment. It's a written document that records it's a 3-step process, and it looks to identify hazards in your workplace. It looks to assess the risks that these hazards present. And then what you need to do when you've identified those hazards and risks, you need to put control measures in place to try and reduce these hazards, to try and stop these having an impact on people. Okay, so that's it in its simplest form. What I'd like to do is, if you can go to the next slide, Greg, what we do is we just look at ways of controlling risk. And again, just to give people an idea of how this can be done. And again, start simply, keep it simple, and then you can build on it. So a control measure is simply a step that you put in place to remove the risk. And what we're looking at here particularly is COVID-19 risks at the moment. So just the examples would be from a control step, how can I eliminate staff interaction in some areas? So that could simply be a case of staggering the start times for individuals. So really what you're looking to do is put measures in place that reduce the interaction between staff so that they can maintain their physical distancing. Another example is, how can I substitute alternative methods of working so I can comply with physical distancing? Again, working from home is an example there. If people are working from home, you're complying with physical distancing. Or in the workplace, you may separate people's desks or make changes to the configuration of your office or your layout. So these are just examples of some control steps that we can use for that. In terms of the people side of things, we may look at some sort of engineering control. So again, I think people, although our travel has been restricted lately, I'm sure people have still been going to supermarkets. And if you go to supermarkets, you will see now there's divisions there between the workers and the customers, and these are in the shape of plastic screens or guards. So again, these would be what we consider as engineering controls to try and maintain physical distancing and maintain safety. You may also look at forms of administrative controls, and these are around managing the flow of people. So like I mentioned a minute ago, you may change the arrival time of people. So you stagger people's arrival time so they don't all arrive at the same time. You may have set up zones in your workplace, so people are only allowed work in certain zones. And the advantage of having zones is that if somebody in zone A is diagnosed with the COVID-19 virus and then become ill, it means then that you haven't contaminated anybody else in any of the other zones. So those people can continue to work. So there's the advantages of using zones. You can also stagger the times of your breaks. And again, by staggering the times of breaks, you're not having big numbers of people interacting at the same time in the canteen areas, in the corridors and so on. Another example for administrative controls is looking at introducing one-way systems around your organization, so people can only work or move around in a certain type of workflow. So they again are just some very brief examples of the types of administrative controls you can put in place to maintain your physical distancing. And then we know from feedback and from examples we've seen it on the news, there are some industries where the 2-meter physical distancing rule is not possible for a number of reasons. We're seeing it in some manufacturing environments. We're seeing it in restaurants and kitchens of restaurants and so on. These are examples that are being given to us. So in those situations, you really need to start looking at PPE, personal protective equipment, whether it's face masks or gloves, etc. So there's a lot of good information there on the HSE website when it comes to PPE gear and suitable PPE gear. So that should just give people a flavour of what a risk assessment is and what they need to do to get their safety statements updated and in compliance with the new return to work safety protocol.
Okay, superb. Anything else that's here? So talking about the signage. Well, do we need to? What's our responsibility when it comes to signage in our business place, in the workplace?
Signage is important because signage, it just re-emphasizes or reminds people of the need for physical distancing, of the need for hygiene requirements and coughing and so on. And it also gives people confidence. You know, if you go into a retail area shop and you see the sign, it just gives people confidence that yes, this has been managed correctly. I'm safe walking around in this environment. And the signage just reminds people from time to time, this is what I need to do. We've also seen, so this is kind of the visual side of signage. We're also seeing as well, again, in supermarkets and in shops, the likes of audio reminders as well. So in my local supermarket, every 15 or 10 or 15 minutes, you're hearing just over the public address system, again, just reminding people to be safe, to keep your physical distancing, just reminding them of the requirements when they're in the supermarket. So signage is very, very important. And again, whether it's in the local park or in the supermarket or petrol station, I think a lot of people will have seen signage now, and they will see how effective it is.
Okay, brilliant. So actually, Quiva has a question, which we certainly will throw up on the screen now. So Quiva says, is there somewhere where an SME should go to get a checklist to make sure they've ticked all the boxes on the return to workplace protocol? Now, we mentioned the return to work document that was produced last Saturday, announced by Heather Humphreys. We literally have a link to that right now, and there's some great resources on your own website, Paul. So I'll just put up on the screen for Quiva and anyone else there. This is a link where you will find the standard back to work I suppose protocols, and with that you can generate quite a nice checklist from there. But Paul, talk to me about, particularly for anyone that's a retailer out there, why don't you talk to me a little bit about what document you have on your own website? The link is there for retail protection.
Okay, we have a document up there for retailers. One thing just before I go into that, Greg, something that's important, like we've talked about developing the documentation and the safety statement, and we've talked about signage. One of the key areas is communication. We have come across a number of organizations that have done a great job in updating their documents, but they haven't communicated it very well to staff, or in the first instance, they've communicated it really well, but any additional revisions to the documents haven't been communicated. So having a good communication plan in place is vital. There are also requirements under the new return to work safety protocol to have a coordinator which will be a lead person from the employer side. And it's also now a requirement to have a lead worker representative as well. And the idea there is that the leadership in the organization and the workers are in constant communication when it comes to COVID-19 related issues. So I think communication is very, very key. Fantastic. So what you're talking about in the retail sector. So again, we don't have a vaccine in place yet. So again, the physical distancing is key. So regardless of the sector it's in, I think we just need to focus on the physical distancing. And in the retail sector, it's important as well, because you're not only looking to physical distancing staff in the office, but you're also looking to do physical distancing with your customers, whether it's outside the premises or inside the premises. So just to remind people that the physical distancing requirements is to maintain a distance of 2 meters between yourself and others at all times. So 2 meters is a metric, and in a pair that's 6.5 feet. Okay, so that's the aim that we're trying to achieve. But there are some settings where people can't do that, and in the return to work safety protocol, they have additional measures there. So people that cannot maintain the 2 meter distance, they look at putting some sort of physical barriers in place, like plastic screens or so on. If that isn't a possibility, if technical solutions aren't there, we should look to try and maintain a distance of at least 1 meter, or whatever distance is reasonably practical. And as soon after you finish working with that person in that reduced distance, you then obviously have to wash your hands, and wipes and so on should be made available. And the recommendation there is also that face masks should be made available to workers too. So so that's the first step. And then we also look at the cleaning side of things as well. So physical distancing is one part of this approach to defeating COVID-19. The other is just regular cleaning. A lot of questions we're getting, so how do I clean? Simple household products is good enough. So you clean, and then you follow the cleaning with disinfecting, and you're looking at really all the surfaces that have been touched, and there should be a regular cleaning protocol in place. Again, this is a requirement. It leads to confidence if people in the supermarket see regular cleaning going on, and it'll also hope to try and reduce some of the stress and the anxiety that people are feeling if they see regular cleaning going ahead. So there's just the requirements, if you like, for the physical distancing and the cleaning. You're talking about the shops and on the retail side of things. So we really have to go back to the control side of things in terms of what administrative controls or what engineering controls can we put in place. So from a shop's perspective, what we really need to look at is, well, first of all, who needs to be there? Who can work from home? So there's an emphasis now placed on what type of retail products can be supplied online. So where possible, you should move some of your sales online, and those people can do that work from home. I think the retail people also, or all sectors, have to look at the vulnerable groups. So it's important to identify what members of staff fall into the vulnerable or the at-risk groups, and you can find a lot of information on that on the HSE website. So in terms of your staff, again, what we've touched earlier on, staggering shifts, splitting shifts, having zones and so on. So that's really for the controls for your staff. In terms of customer controls, for the retail sector, it's very important to manage the queues when you're outside. So really ensure that you have somebody managing the queue. I think at the moment, the requirement, there's 100 people are only allowed inside at any one time. Now that may be changed, so that people just need to keep abreast of that. So you need somebody outside the shop managing the entry and the exit of people. It's good to have that person just reminding people of the physical distancing and coughing etiquette and so on, either verbally or having signage. It's also important as well, if there are a number of queues in the local vicinity, to make sure the queues aren't crossing across each other. I think that's very, very important. Then when people get inside the shop, again, it's important that we manage the people inside the shop, regular announcements. If possible, have lane monitors, have people actually in the shop whose role is to just ensure that the physical distancing is being maintained. Try and control as best you can the input or the flow of people towards the checkout areas, that you don't have large congregations of people as well. We are giving advice where it should if possible, try not to bring children with you, and the idea will be that we just have one customer per trolley policy, and again, that is in itself is a way of maintaining physical distancing. So they're just some examples of what to do inside the shop, as well as having markings on the floor as well to remind people as they're walking around what a 2-meter distance is and things like that. So that's inside the shop. Other things to remember for the retail though is what goes on in the back end of the shop in terms of delivery. So try and encourage delivery drivers to remain in the vehicles if they can. If they need hand washing or toilet facilities, see if it's possible to provide them with separate toilet facilities. So again, there's no risk of cross-contamination between staff from the outside your organization inside. And another thing we're looking to do is try and encourage people to use electronic forms of payment and electronic forms of documentation. So again, there's no need for people to be signing documents or anything like that. So again, it's all very much business at a distance. So they're the type of things that we're trying to encourage for physical distancing around the administrative side of things. And then the engineering controls, again, we've touched on it earlier on, is really putting plastic screens and barriers up in place to just try and have that divide between the customers and the workers. And that's there to protect the customers, or sorry, well, first of all, protect the workers, but also to protect the customers as well.
Brilliant. Okay, there's questions flying in left, right, and centre at the moment, which is brilliant. So we'll just hit a few of the questions as they come in. John asks, is there a document for driving schools or trading companies? I think the reality is at the moment it's the standard documentation is what you want to look at. So look at the return to work safety protocol, which can be found in the DBEI, which is the Department of Enterprise and Innovation website, and you'll find the return to work safety protocol. So for the moment, that's probably your best route for that one, I would imagine. Who else do we have? We have Gemma asks, is an adapted safety statement still a must if you're a sole person in the business but work with the public?
Again, that is the safety statement is really the responsibility of the employer, but it's looked after by the Health and Safety Authority. So I think that type of question should be given directly to the Health and Safety to get clarification. I don't have the knowledge around that to answer that question.
Sure, that's no worries. So, but what I would say is it's definitely no harm having a safety statement, particularly if you are dealing with the general public. I think it's probably good best practice. But great advice there from Paul. Just double check with the right authority. Another question in from Raymond. Let's go to Raymond. My apologies, guys, if I miss anyone's anyone's question, but this is a good one from Raymond. If we operate the social distancing in the workplace and one of our staff members is unfortunate to test positive for COVID, will all employees, which is 8 in his case, be considered contacts and have to isolate?
It depends. There's good guidance there in the Return to Work Safely Protocol, and there's a lot of guidance on the HSE. It really depends what type of interaction the person that is being diagnosed has had with the other members of staff. So I think in that instance, if the person is diagnosed, the HSE or the contact tracing team will contact you then to advise you if any of the other people need to be put into isolation. That's my understanding how it will work. But again, the HSA is the best place to go and get further advice on that.
So check out the HSA. You mentioned something earlier on, which was quite interesting. I can't even remember the term you used, but you mentioned about, I don't know what he said, working in pods, but I suppose it may be best practice, and you tell me whether I'm completely wrong here, Paul, of trying to make sure that all your staff aren't working in the same place at the same time. So if someone does get infected, that maybe 2 or 3 other people would be in direct contact with that person rather than all 7.
No, and again, that goes back to your business continuity. So
yeah,
ideally, you should break your team up in zones or in teams. So in the event that one team there is an infection, it doesn't impact on the other team. So examples you can have, just looking at zoning, would be the people that work in the stores area only stay in the stores area. The same with manufacturing or the canteen or the office. So you try to just minimize their interaction with other colleagues. So in the event that somebody in the stores area gets a positive diagnosis with COVID-19, that nobody else in the organization is going to be infected by that person. So that's the idea what zoning will try and do.
Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Let's see what else we have here. No. I'll just remove Ray's comment for a second there. Sorry, my apologies. Let's talk about masks for a second. So is it best practice? Should I be wearing masks, and should my staff be wearing masks if I'm dealing with the general public?
All it says at the moment in the protocol is that if you're working less than the 2 meters, that masks should be made available. But from what I've seen so far, if people maintain the physical distance of 2 meters, there is no requirement to wear masks in terms of the protocols. I think if people decide after that, it's more personal choice, or it could be maybe an organizational policy that you bring in. But at the moment, masks are only really needed under 1.5 meters. Now, I need to stress, well, we're talking about non-medical environments here as well. So obviously people working in the medical environment, there'll be different requirements for those when it comes to face masks.
Yeah, and even though some of the local enterprise office clients have become quite innovative and have started to go to manufacturing masks or even importing masks. And I know one of the problems with masks is, where do I find the goddamn things? Very, very difficult sometimes to source. But don't you have a protocol for is it certifying or putting down standards when it comes to PPE, mask and protection?
We do. And again, if people go to nsai.ie, under the COVID-19 section, we've put a guide up there for PPE. So the guide is really for people who are looking to manufacture PPE equipment. And it's also there to look at people who are looking to import and distribute PPE, because there are European and national requirements and laws around doing that. So if people are looking to get involved in manufacturing or import distribution, please review that guide to make sure you're doing everything as per the legislation.
Okay, I think that's a great tip, because again, we may be sitting there going, actually, well, we could manufacture masks, or we could distribute masks or import them, because quite frankly, getting our hands on them can be a challenging thing. Absolutely. So, and I think for staff, sometimes staff may feel more protected working in your business if they're being offered the choice of wearing a mask or not.
Absolutely.
Or even them a mask.
Yeah. And again, the important thing is the mask, the wearing of a mask is great, and they're very effective. But there is a risk of cross-contamination if people don't wear them correctly, or if people take them off correctly. So again, if people go to the HSE website, there's information there around the correct use of these as well, because if they're not used correctly, it can actually lead to an increased risk of contamination.
Sure. Okay. Brilliant. Now, you may not have a direct answer to this, but I'm going to throw Neve's question up there, because it is to a certain extent covered in a bunch of the guidelines. But as regards staff training, so obviously we have our staff going back to work. Number one, we have to look after their mental health. We have to give them clear guidelines. What kind of commitments do we have to give to our staff? Someone asked a question, it just came in for, what was the question? It was, do my staff need to complete a questionnaire, a form, or a checklist before returning to work? So tell me about that then.
Okay, look, I'll cover the two. So the first one was the question from Neve about the training. So in the return to work safety protocol, there is a requirement to put an induction program in place for staff returning. And the idea of the reduction is to bring them up to speed with what's changed since they were last in the organization. A lot has changed. So if people go to the return to work safety protocol, it provides information on what that induction should cover. So it's really looking at up-to-date advice and guidance on public health. So where we are with the whole COVID-19, what workers should do if they develop symptoms, how the workplace is being organised to address COVID-19. So what changes have we made, both the administrative and the engineering changes being made. You need to tell the staff what the response plan is. Again, we talked earlier on, so it's very important that they know what this plan is, this business continuity plan is. It's very important to tell the staff what the points of contact are, so what members of staff are responsible for what. So that goes back to our business continuity plan early on about the whole roles and responsibility side of thing. And any other sector specific advice that is relevant to your sector. So that just gives a flavour of what the induction should cover. And again, that's all covered under the return to work safety protocol. That's something that is a requirement. You then talked about the return to work form. So again, a requirement is the form, and the form must be completed by all staff who are returning. And it's really, the form is just there to basically get the staff to confirm if they're symptom free, if they've had any symptoms over the last 14 days, and have they been advised by their doctor to self-isolate or cocoon or whatever. So again, it's very important that that form is put in place, that all the staff do it, and the form must follow the headings that are in the return to work safety protocol. So if people look at that document, they'll see what should go in the form. My understanding as well is that I think later on this week, the HSA are going to publish further advice in relation to these things. So keep an eye on the gov.ie website and the HSA website for further details and further clarifications on this.
Yeah, so great advice. So something we've mentioned a lot, guys. I don't know whether you can see it there, but is the official publication published last Saturday. It was published the 8th of May, but within there, it's got lots and lots of steps for what employers need to do and what employers need to do to get prepared to returning to work. So that is pretty much your initial Bible to go and build your checklists and see what procedures you need, from hand hygiene to respiratory hygiene and so on. So just to kind of reiterate that is that is definitely something that you need to check out. And again, if you're sitting there watching this and you're saying, well, where is that again? Let me just pull up my link, just because, again, if you haven't looked at this already, this is a site you need to go to. So again, I've just shortened the link. It's in the department's, the DBEI website, but it's bit.ly/return2work 2020 will take you there. But just to reiterate that piece. Going back to comments now, I think Henry's probably good, but he needs to look at this document. But Henry asks, hi, Paul and Greg. I work alone and I have a retail business, but by appointment only. I have signs up, sanitizers and gloves on entry. I can easily keep the social distance, and payments and paperwork can be done after collection. is he covered? Like, I know that's quite a lot to say. He's ticked every box, but is there anything missing that Henry needs to do that you can spot, Paul?
Look, from what he's told us, he looks like he's covered the main boxes, but I would encourage him to review the return to work safety protocol just to make sure that he hasn't missed anything. I think it's very important that he read through that document in detail just to make sure that he's ticked all the boxes.
Yeah, brilliant. But it sounds like you're making great inroads, Henry, and certainly preparing and thinking about how business is going to perform. So that's great. I'm sure there'll be an element of leeway here as long as people try to do the right thing. Francis, we may or may not be able to help Francis here, but she's in Kilkenny. Hello, beautiful Kilkenny. All the paperwork that we need to put in place, such as updating our health and safety documents and our processes and protocols. I mean, does this have to be done before the doors open? So if I'm a hardware store looking at opening next Monday and I haven't done my homework, if you like, should I wait till I've got all this paperwork done before I open?
My understanding is yes, it needs to be in place before you open the doors. But again, just for clarification, I know the HSE, the Health and Safety Authority, have a hotline. So if you go onto their website, you can drop them an email or you can give them a call and seek clarification. But my understanding is yes, it needs to be in place beforehand.
Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Ingrid, just so you know, as soon as this is over, I'll cut and paste that bit.ly link in for you. So it will be in the comments right after this particular session. You mentioned vulnerable workers. So what kind of additional steps do I need to take to accommodate vulnerable workers? And heck, who exactly are vulnerable workers, Paul?
Well, vulnerable workers are anybody who has an underlying medical condition, who could be currently undergoing medical treatment. They could be above the age of 60 or 70 years of age. Again, if you go to the HSE, have a very good website there that lists what a vulnerable or an at-risk person is. So I think the important thing for that is that where possible, we should try and encourage those people to work from home. I think that's the main advice. And if we can't, we should do everything possible to ensure that they have the necessary safety measures in place to allow them to work from their place of business if they have to do that.
So great advice. So keep them away from home if you can. And I suppose if it's a front-facing business like maybe a hardware shop, maybe if we can keep them in the back doing paperwork rather than be on the front line and interacting directly with customers, that might make sense too. So with so many things, it's common sense if we can just plan our process before we fling our doors open. I'm not sure about Claire, but let's ask Claire's question anyway. Have a look at it. Now, bridal boutique. Now, this is, again, it's about trying to think through a process of how we do this. So any advice on that? You can talk about any business where traditionally, there was a lot of, I suppose, hands-on or direct engagement with customers. How do we deal with that? Or can we deal with that? Is there any tips?
Yeah, look, I suppose the easiest thing is if you haven't already done so, like that type of business should be an appointment only. So you stop people congregating in your shop. You just deal with people on a one-to-one basis. And again, you try and maintain that physical distance as best you can for the duration of that appointment. I know for that type of business, you will have to get into close contact with somebody, but again, it should be at a minimum, and the necessary or the suitable PPE should be put in place when that is the case.
Yeah. So again, it's about thinking it through, and I don't know. Maybe it's a case of we need that person to come with another person to help with zips and veils, or another family member, whilst we keep distances. So again, it's thinking the process through. Yeah. So
and it's not. I suppose it's trying to minimize. Obviously, keep to an absolute minimum the people there, but it's also when the person has left the shop, then obviously there has to be the routine cleaning has to take place of any of the commonly touched surfaces. So there should be a good cleaning protocol put in place between each of the people attending for appointment as well. That's very important.
Okay, and say business trips, like a business trips banned? Can I, or what's the protocol with maybe even visiting a client? Presumably we'd want to we want to avoid visiting clients and business trips, and we'd be trying to do them remotely on the likes of Zoom or Microsoft Teams. But what's the official response on the likes of business meetings and trips?
Yeah, you've just basically summed up there. It's really to try and keep any business trips or face-to-face interactions to an absolute minimum. So I certainly know since this has happened, I've been living on Zoom and Microsoft Teams for the last 7 or 8 weeks. I've completely stopped doing business travel and face-to-face meetings, and it was a challenge to begin with, but it's become the norm now in a very short space of time. So the advice is very much keep it to a minimum, and where it has to happen, again, strict physical distancing and hygiene protocols should be put in place. One thing we're looking at is the likes of people traveling. If they do have to travel, encourage people to travel on their own as opposed to a number of people traveling in the same vehicle. Or if you have to have a number of people in a vehicle, again, establish teams and only that team travel with each other. So again, you're trying to minimize the spread in case there is a positive test for COVID-19.
Absolutely. So we think of the construction industry, we used to have like armies of people hanging out of cars. That we just have to take separate cars and keep our distances as much as possible.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. We're coming to the end of the session. Let me just check the questions. I think we're so, okay, here's a question. Let's pull this one up. Sorry if I've missed any questions. Retail clothing stores and shopping centres will have to have a staff member on the door managing the flow of customers, ? Presumably that would be the case. You want to control the number of people coming into your shop. You probably want a one flow system around your physical shop, and you need people to take their distance as they're waiting, or keep their distance as they're waiting outside the shop. But I'm just assuming that. Is that the case, Paul?
That's the case, yeah. So manage the number of people in the shop at all times. Have a system outside, so when people are queuing to come into the shop, it's safe for them to do so, as in physical distancing, and make sure you have adequate signage outside as well. So they will be the key things that I would be looking for outside a shop.
And you said looking after your staff and looking after your staff's mental health. So the problem now is we're doing things, staff are going to do things that they maybe don't love doing, quite frankly. I may not love that job. So again, it's supporting the staff, and if they need or they feel more comfortable wearing masks and so on, don't forget to support our staff through this. Just to wrap up, you gave me some really good resources and tips earlier on. Let me try to pull them up for you, and maybe you can talk us through some of the useful links that are out there.
Yeah. I suppose I've just given a flavour of what's out there. If people go to the NSAI, the 2 guidance documents we have, there's a lot more links there. But just for today, I think the first link is very useful there, because as we know, the government have announced a roadmap for reopening, and there's a number of stages. So it's important that the various retailers or businesses know at what stage they're allowed to reopen. So that's the first link. We've talked a lot today about signage. So if people go to that gov.ie website there, they will see all of the artwork that is there that is COVID-19 related, which I think is very, very useful. We've also touched on PPE gear, and the Health Protection Surveillance Centre, the HPSC, they have a very good piece of advice there on what is suitable PPE and what circumstances it should be used. So I think that could be useful. Debbie, Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation, they have some very good supports there for businesses that have been impacted. So I'd recommend people having a read there. And just something more simple, we talked a lot about hand washing today. So there's a lot of good stuff on the HSE, and I've just given this as an example. There's how-to guides there and how to wash your hands. There's been a lot of talk about the 20-second rule and so on. So it might seem simple, but this is very, very valuable information, particularly when it comes to the induction for your staff coming back. You can point them towards these supports that are online.
Brilliant. A quick one, just there's a few questions came in. Just any advice for gyms? So gyms opening up. I know every business is slightly different, and I know it's a little bit down the line before I'd be likely to open up my gym. But is there any particular guidelines or tips or tricks when it comes to gyms, Paul?
I think gyms are no different from any other organization. Gyms will be expected to maintain the physical distancing of 2 meters, and where not possible, they'll have to put in either engineering solutions or other solutions to maintain people's safety. So I think the gyms, because of the nature of what they do, is going to be quite a challenge.
Of course, yeah. Okay, so there presumably there's going to be more guidelines in the coming weeks as we move closer to that phase, I suppose. But we're still in the figuring it out phase. Thank you so much for that. You, as regards yourselves and the support that you do, how do people contact yourself? I see the details popping up there in the screen. You're available by email and by telephone. Talk me through how why people would contact you and what support you guys are offering.
So we have a team here in NSAI that's providing business support, and the support we're supplying is directly related to what's in our guides. So if anybody has any questions about what's in the guides, they can give us a call or they can drop us an email, and we'll have one of our people either speak to them there and then, or we'll certainly call them back straight away. If anything is more of a health and safety issue or a medical issue, I think those inquiries should be directed towards the Health and Safety Authority or the HSE. So again, our guideline, our helpline there is really for the guides that we have published that can be found on nsai.ie.
Okay, fantastic, great stuff. So that's it. So it's like anything else. I didn't even know the resource was there to contact you guys. So that's brilliant. I'm going to risk trying to bring Kevin on board. Kevin's been so patient. God love him. He was working swimmingly earlier on. We could hear him beautifully, and then just before the broadcast, we struggled to connect with Kevin. So he's been frantically trying to connect just to talk about some of the local enterprise office supports that are out there. Let's see whether Kevin, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but more importantly, can you hear me?
Believe it or not, Kevin, we can, which is fantastic.
Brilliant. Glad to join you guys anyway.
Yeah, we've had a super session without you anyway, Kevin, you know.
Well, and I didn't feel in the slightest bit left out. But listen, Paul, play for that. And I suppose, look, it's really important, I suppose, that when people are looking at advice, that they reach out to those individuals and those organizations that are expert and have a mandate in this. So, I mean, look, you've talked an awful lot of sense there, and I think it's talked through an awful lot of the sort of problems that businesses are encountering. And I think, clued in both resources and ideas in terms of how you deal with them. Look, our big thing at the moment, I suppose, Greg, is to act as a sounding board, as a first responder, if you want, for our small and micro businesses around the place. So, yeah, look, we're getting calls in anything and everything. Look, advice is a big piece of what we do. Signposting is a big piece of what we do. Two organizations like the NSAI and the HSA and the HSE, as already mentioned. And in terms of having somebody at the end of a phone or having somebody, at the end of an email address, that's the key thing with us, I think, at the moment, Greg.
Brilliant. I know it's still the great resource is the local enterprise.ie/response is a place to go. And I know when it comes to, I'm sure there'll be future local enterprise office supports coming down the board. But at the moment, I mean, I know there's mentoring that you guys offer, the local enterprise office. There's Lean for Micro.
Yeah.
Talk us through some of the supports.
Absolutely. I suppose the two that you mentioned there, mentoring. And, I look at that in two levels at the moment. One, just getting somebody who can look under the bonnet for you and maybe help you to diagnose the problem or diagnose the solution and see where you go. But another big thing with the mentoring as well, Greg, is I think people are maybe struggling, maybe in isolation at the moment, and just having access to somebody that they can talk through a few of the problems with has been absolutely fantastic for people. And just to be able to say, look, come here, how might I do this, or how might I get out of that, or how might I connect to something else, that has been seriously valuable to our businesses. So that's going to be there. Lean for Micro, it's funny actually, a number of the responses that we have come in just in terms of how might people improve their business practices, how might they make them more efficient. Those have ended up being, I suppose, the vehicle, if you want, to provide maybe COVID-19 reopening solutions to businesses as well. So yeah, all of those that you mentioned, I suppose, they are seriously important for them. And I suppose another one that I would flag as well too, Greg, a lot of our businesses, their front doors are closed at the moment. A lot of our businesses are looking forward to the day that they can physically reopen their businesses. And in the meantime, availing of the opportunity to trade online, get online, and more importantly, make a couple of bob online are key for some of our businesses. So we've trading online vouchers, which are quite a valuable kit worth up to €2,500 in terms of getting your business online, and more importantly, getting the expertise to put your business online, getting those websites up and going to get your business online. And you're sharing it there now, excellent. But look, the fact that your front door is physically closed does not mean that you cannot be, minus the opportunity to trade. And as a guy put it to me recently, he said, the great thing about trading online, he said, that you can make money 24/7. You can make money in bed at night, fast asleep, and, customers are coming at you and customers are interacting at you. That's brilliant. That's key. That's so important.
No, brilliant advice. Not to regress, never go back, they say. But explain to me the lean for micro. That sounds interesting to me. So obviously it's about making your business lean, or getting a consultant or someone to help me to cut the fat and the wastage in my business, as I have to get leaner and meaner to survive in these challenging times. What exactly is lean for micro?
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, look, it's getting it leaner. And even those of us who might think that we're lean at the moment, we could always do with a bit of extra buffy up and things anyway. But it's about looking at what you're doing, about looking at why you're doing it. And, are there things that we should keep doing? Are there things that we should stop doing? Are there things that maybe we should start doing now, so in order to improve what you're doing? And it's all about bottom line, Greg. It's all about improving bottom line. And it's all about really delivering better value, more efficiency, if you want, into your business. And how it really works is approach your local enterprise office saying, listen, yeah, I actually think that there's a better way of doing it. Talking to us and getting the assistance to get somebody in who knows what they're talking about, who will take that deep dive under the bonnet, who will say, well, actually, why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it that way? Have you ever considered X, or would you ever consider maybe not doing Y, or really Z is the way forward? And in pretty much every business that I have experience of, and I'm sure my colleagues would say the same thing, where we have got in, it's not just notional savings, it's not just notional improvements, Greg, but every single one of them can either have a time or a euro sign put alongside it. And that's gold. That's absolute gold for our businesses. Better, faster, higher, as the Olympics motto is, if you want anyway. I think it's the same. This could be the Olympics for your business as well, in terms of how it improves their performance.
Okay, so it's definitely something worth looking at. It's amazing how, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but certainly how many businesses become inefficient in certain ways when business is going well, because we can afford to. But when it gets tough, words of wisdom and getting some consultancy can be massive.
Absolutely, Greg. And we all get into maybe habits in terms of how we do stuff as well too. And having that Control Alt Delete time, if you want, that we just reboot, refresh, and go at it again. I think that's important for anybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's a no-brainer. Not that we would suggest loans or want people to get into debt, but one of the things that sounds pretty obvious to me is, I need signage. I need to update my health and safety documents. I need to potentially to train and support my staff. My shop has less capacity for people to walk into than the past. So there's lots of challenges ahead, and just something that you may want to flag, which may apply to some of us, here are the COVID-19 business loan schemes that you have with Microfinance Ireland. Can you talk?
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. I mean, look, a great product, and look, we're really delighted to be working with our colleagues in Microfinance Ireland on this. Look, cash is king, they always say, and I suppose, look, some of our businesses are struggling at the moment in terms of, getting, be it working capital, or as you mentioned there, something maybe to put up those screens or whatever it might be. So look, this is a product, it's available specifically for businesses that are affected, that have had to close their doors, or trade has gone south, or whatever near. It's it's a loan of up to €50,000, repayable for up to 3 years. Key thing is as well too, look, you get a loan and draw it down in the morning. There's an inbuilt payment holiday there for up to 6 months. So, it's accepting the fact that you mightn't have money washing back in the front door straight away anyway. Do it via your local enterprise office, and there's a 1% discount on the interest rate that's applicable for you, firstly. But secondly, and just as importantly as well too, Local enterprise offices, our front doors may not be open, but we are open to help you work through this process as well too, and to actually maybe get a little bit of expertise to work with you, in terms of maybe preparing those cash flow forecasts that are there, maybe polishing up your business plan in terms of where things are going. But like I said, we may not be physically open, but that helping hand is virtually there in terms of helping you get that cash that will, help your business along, help your business reopen, help your business maybe to keep going, to get over this particular pinch point. And like I said, you are looking at a payment holiday then of up to 6 months, recognizing the fact that, the new normal is going to be a little bit different for us for a little bit of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And someone mentioned to me the other day, and maybe you can throw some light on this for me, Kevin. The Brexit COVID business advisor. What's that?
Yeah, I suppose. Listen, Brexit hasn't gone away, without a doubt, and there's still stuff ongoing there. Brexit business advisor it was a particular initiative that was rolled out last year to recognize the fact that, again, we had particular businesses who were impacted that bit more by Brexit. Both our exporting companies, but also businesses that are importing from or through the UK. So what we done last year, and we've repeated this year, is put a bit of extra dedicated resource and have it there available for our businesses that feel they are impacted, or maybe aren't quite sure whether they're impacted or not, because sometimes there's a bit of diagnostic has to be done first to see what's there. But look, if your business feels that it is impacted either today, tomorrow, or might be, come and talk to us. And what we will do is help you to have a look at, things like supply chain, things like maybe currency risk, things like, transportation, that sort of stuff as well too, and just figure out what's the best way that your business can deal with this, because I'll repeat myself, it has not gone away and it's still live and kicking. And you know what, if one crisis is bad enough to deal with at the same time, what'll happen if we've 2 or 3 coming at us at one period? So again, come in and talk to us, pick up the phone, get online.
Exactly. Now, just to reiterate, I think it was you, Kevin, but I was hearing today that there was some of the local enterprise offices are processing about 5 years worth of trading online vouchers and so on between last month and the end of June. It's mental busy, and obviously loads of businesses need support. So if you don't get through on the phone. If you don't get through on the phone, email. I think
that's a very important message, Greg. And I suppose, look, it is busy. Yeah, it's exceptionally busy. And I suppose, look, that's only natural. It's a reaction to the fact that people are looking at the online piece as a way of, virtually resurrecting trade until such time as they can physically reopen the door. Yeah, we are busy in terms of numbers. Staff are under a little pressure. That's not a thing. But look, if you would ask people, if you have inquiries, get them to us by email. If you go onto localenterprise.ie, you can get the contact details, including email accounts for all of the 31 LEOs in the country. And if you get an email to us, I promise you, we'll get to it as quickly as possible. To be fair to businesses at the moment, there is no such thing as a stupid question. The stupid thing to be would be not to ask the question at the moment. We will try and get back to you as quickly as we can, but we would have a little bit of patience just in terms of the volume of inquiries that are coming at us. And I'm sure Paul and his colleagues in the NSAI and other agencies are no different as well too in terms of the volume of stuff coming at us. But we are open, we are here. We're maybe scattered in a few different places other than our normal offices at the moment, but we are take those inquiries.
Brilliant, Kevin. Thank you so much. So that's fantastic. So be patient and contact. And I would imagine in the coming weeks there'll be more support. There'll be more things happening. So stay in touch through the Facebook page and through localenterprise.ie/response for any new initiatives or supports that come on board. I want to say a huge thanks to Paul and to Kevin. We've got to stop calling this Lunch and Learn 45 minutes. It's a much longer lunch than that. It's been over an hour because of the engagement. But thank you guys so much for your input. And Kevin, thank you so much for your perseverance for getting on the screen. We put Paul out in the cold there just to give him a taste of his own medicine there a minute ago. But It's been lovely talking to you guys, and thank you so much for your input today. And for you two guys and everyone else watching this session, stay healthy, stay happy, and stay safe. And we'll see you soon. So thank you and take care. And just as we leave this, what I'll do is I'm going to leave with we'll say goodbye by just throwing up Paul's useful links. So just if we hadn't seen them before, what we'll do is we'll cut and paste these links into the comments box in a little bit. So we'll put all the links referenced today into the comments box right here. So from me, Greg Fry, from Paul, from Kevin, it's goodbye, and we'll see you next week on another Lunch and Learn. Take care.
Your local enterprise office, helping your business respond.